A presidential inauguration can set the tone for an entire four-year term with consequences that make an indelible mark on history. So let's take a look at some of the most consequential inaugurations of the past with the help of presidential historian and CBS News consultant Douglas Brinkley. It's great to have you with us.
Well, good morning, and these are wonderful quarters you have here. It's amazing. It's inspiring.
It is inspiring. I mean, the whole backdrop is an inspiration when you see it live in person. What do you think in terms of inaugurations? How much of a harbinger of things to come are the addresses the presidents give?
Well, they often are. I mean, one of the ones I think is a masterpiece in statecraft, really, is FDR's second inauguration. You don't hear much about it, but it was 1937. His first one is when he said, "We have nothing to fear but fear itself." Mm-hmm. Here he is in a polio, in a wheelchair, saying that, and we're in the Great Depression. Second one was an incrementalism. He improved the unemployment numbers and went down, but we were still in the Depression. And he gave a marvelous speech, one I think Barack Obama might pay attention to, which it talks about the need. Nobody's happy in America if the middle class is suffering, and we need to be a country of individuals, but we also need to work as a collective whole.
Mm-hmm. One of the most important ones on your list is President Lincoln's inaugural speech in 1861. It was actually a pretty tense time, right? We're about to go into Civil War.
Yeah, both of Lincoln's inaugurals are amazing. The first one, he got elected in 1860, did not have a majority of the people behind him, and we're on the eve of the Civil War. I mean, Dulles Airport here, that's where Battle of Bull Run took place, and the Union lost. Right. So there was fear on that first inaugural Lincoln was going to be shot. He even wrote a friend, there may be bullets flying. It was that tense. At the time of his second inaugural, the Civil War was near over, and that's when he gave that famous speech, "With malice towards none, with charity to all." Mm-hmm. And one of the most moving scenes in all of American history is Frederick Douglass was standing there listening to this, and later Lincoln said to Douglass, "You're the only person I care. What did you think of the speech?" And he said, "It was wonderful, Mr. President." And Douglass, more and more, we're starting to understand they were going to build right here on the Mall an African American History Museum coming up in a couple of years. And Frederick Douglass's home is in Anacostia, and it's that Lincoln-Douglas connection, particularly at the time of the second inaugural. It's quite interesting.
Teddy Roosevelt's address, also often cited, from 1901 in September, just after McKinley had been assassinated. How much did that set the tone for the rest of his presidency?
Well, you know, it's interesting. Theodore Roosevelt's is interesting because sometimes we have inaugurals when we don't want them and we don't expect them. Most famously, Dallas, right? I mean, when Lyndon Johnson's getting sworn in on Air Force One. Theodore Roosevelt had to go to Buffalo. There's one house in Buffalo where McKinley died, another where the Ansley Wilcox house where Theodore Roosevelt was sworn in, and he kind of stumbled through it all, just said, "Yeah, I've got the oath." So he didn't have his hand on a Bible, he just said a few words, but he became president. And it reminds us that things are sometimes haphazard at inaugurations, that we don't get to pre-plan like we are for this one.
Douglas, President Obama's first inauguration drew record crowds in Washington. How do you think ultimately it will be remembered?
For the record crowds that it drew, I mean, I have kids, and you have the placemat, and on it at your breakfast table, it's all white faces, and now you have the first African American. Man, was that historic. You have over 1 million people pouring in here, electricity in the air. It didn't matter so much what the speech was that year. It was about the atmospherics. This time around, I think the speech the president gives is going to be very important because you're having less balls, smaller crowds, lower enthusiasm factor, but he can make up for that by having words that someday might be carved in marble.
Douglas Brinkley, thank you. Appreciate it. Nice to see you in person.
Nice to see you.